Hello, film fans. Welcome to the Film vs. Film podcast. My name is Martin Harries, your host. I'm a filmmaker on occasion, but mainly can't stop yapping about movies. On this podcast, every episode I pick a topic from a film that's coming out at the cinema or on streaming. I pick a favourite film from that topic and battle it out against a guest to decide which film will become the greatest film of all time. If you enjoy this podcast, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Please enjoy part 1. Hello, Podroonies or Podsters, if you prefer. We are back again for another episode of the Film vs. Film podcast. And this episode, Mickey 17 is delayed. Hollywood can't sort it out again because they just don't listen to my podcasts, and I give them the schedule and they just ignore me. I don't know what's going on there, people. So we're relating to the episode 2 Robert Pattinson films, and I'm joined by a guest for the 4th time, I think. Tommy from Haven't Seen It. How are you?
Good. How are you? I think it's 3rd or 4th time.
Yeah.
Good to be back on the show.
Yeah, 2 regular episodes and 1 spoiler special for the god-awful Exorcist Believer episode.
Yeah. Terrible movie. Already forgot it.
Yeah, but that was a lot of fun. Yeah, until now. So, Tommy, if the listeners don't already know, what is your podcast called, what it's about, and where can we find you?
Yeah, so my podcast is Haven't Seen It. Me and my co-host Tim, we cover a movie each week that one of us hasn't seen before. So, for example, we're about to record an episode on Scarface coming up, the Pacino version. We also covered Heat in the past, and we just released an episode on Tombstone. So all episodes like classic 90s, 2000s, everything. You can find us on social media at Seen It Pod. So wherever you get your podcast to.
I feel like your podcast is turning into films that we haven't seen in a while podcast.
Yeah, well, actually,
running out maybe.
Well, somehow my limit has not been reached yet. Where like sometimes I'm saying I maybe watched this when I was like a kid. We've done that before. Like I haven't seen this in 25 years. I don't remember. So we'll hit the limit eventually.
Yeah, that counts. We're doing that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Cool. So Mickey 17 then, unfortunately, it's been delayed till next January, which is quite unusual. Usually when like Hollywood moves stuff, it's only like a few months or a few weeks, but this is like a really long time. So sometimes that just means, I don't know whether it was just maybe pandemic or strikes related, because I think this is a big movie. It's got quite a stacked cast. Obviously Robert Pattinson, but Mark Ruffalo, Toni Collette, Stephen Yeun, quite a lot of big names, I would say, and it's sci-fi, so it looks really interesting. Lots to do with clones and stuff. There's only really one image of Robert Pattinson kind of upside down in this, I guess, cloning bed. I'm not really sure. That's all we've got. What do you make of this one then? And obviously directed by Bong Joon-ho. So when it does come out next January, I expect we'll do an episode on Bong Joon-ho films. Because even from this just very simple image, I am kind of excited to see it.
It looks interesting. I mean, all I knew about the movie was the one image, and that it was Robert Pattinson and Bong Joon-ho. This would be his first movie since Parasite, which obviously was an incredible movie.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see it, but it does give me pause now whenever Warner Brothers delays a movie where it's like, oh no, is this going to be like Coyote versus Acme right here? So it doesn't look like that. I think they're going to stick with it. But this movie concluded, I just looked up, this concluded production in December 2022. So at this point, it's like, all right, 3 years later, does it take this much post-production?
Oh, okay.
So we'll see.
Yeah, that's kind of weird.
Yeah.
When there's a lot of like CGI involved, I do get worried these days. But it's got a great director, so I'm hopeful.
Yeah.
So we'll go with my choice first then, if that's all right with you, Tommy.
Yeah.
Because I've got my notes for my choice up on my screen.
Yeah.
So a bit of a peek behind the curtain there, people. So my choice then for Robert Pattinson films, this was kind of hard, and obviously when I always do the podcast, I ask the guest to choose first, and my pretty much number one choice was The Lighthouse. But of course, my guests are not stupid. They went with The Lighthouse as well.
Yeah.
So I was like, damn, what the hell do I go with? And I it was hard because I really wanted to go with the Batman because I fucking love the Batman. Robert Pattinson as Batman, the Matt Reeves film. That is such a good film. I do think it rivals Dark Knight as one of the best Batman films. I don't know whether you agree with that, Tommy.
Oh, easily. I mean, I haven't rewatched it, but
Yeah.
it's definitely like up there in that tier.
I was thinking about High Life. That's kind of a weird sci-fi film from Claire Denis, which I really liked. I haven't gone. I mean, it is proper cheap at times, but it's kind of really effective. There's the Lost City of Zed. It didn't really interest me too much. I've not seen that one. Maps to the Stars. I saw. He had a bit of a run with David Cronenberg in the early 2010s. That's a really interesting one, but I don't think he's in it that much. The Rover I've not seen. That's supposed to be very good. Cosmopolis, again, a David Cronenberg film, which is just really weird. And I watched it a long time ago, and I frankly can't remember anything that happens in that film. So I was tempted to go with that just to remember what the fuck went on in this movie. And obviously all the Twilight films, and I ain't fucking picking a Twilight film. Sorry, people. No.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's the end of her choices right there.
Yeah. So I think the only one left really was Good Time. And when I was researching and looking at all the lists of best RPATS films, this one was kind of always in the top 3 or top 5, and in a few of them it was in their number 1. So yeah, I went with Good Time in the end. So what happens in Good Time? Well, bringing up the IMDb, as is always the case now. After a botched bank robbery lands his younger brother in prison, Connie Nickus embarks on a twisted odyssey through New York City's underworld to get his brother Nick out of jail. That's pretty much the gist of it. Yeah, it's a very dark, very, very dark film that's very grimy and kind of physically dark as well. It's a really, really, really fucking tense movie at times. It's just like, oh my god,
the Safdie daughters just excel at that. I mean, this and Uncut Gems are just like a lesson in how to film anxiety on screen.
Yeah, the Safdies are pretty incredible, and obviously Benny Safdie acts in this as Nick, Robert Pattinson's brother. So initial reactions for you, Tommy? What did you make of Good Time?
I really liked it. This is a first-time watch for me. I tried to watch this once at a movie night with friends, and my friend made us shut us off after 20 minutes because he said, this is too anxiety-inducing. I can't do this. So I was glad years later to finally actually watch it. Yeah, he straight up refused. The only time we ever done that for movie night, where he was just like, I can't watch this. This is too much.
Wow.
Yeah. And you can see why. I mean, like, the amount of tension this movie gives you is just like unrelenting. Especially in the opening 25 minutes and like right before the title card, right before the opening credits. It was just a crazy, intense way. I mean, I watched this while doing laundry, but I was gripped the whole time.
Okay.
Like, it wasn't a background watch. I was like, all right, fuck. I'm locked in right here.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that title sequence, because the titles only come up after like 20 minutes, so it's kind of really bold in that sense. Yeah, initial reactions for me, like, it's just really, really tense, and Robert Pattinson is quite incredible in this, and you don't see much of Benny Safdie, but he is obviously playing someone with learning difficulties, and I think he pulls that off pretty well too. I think what's great about this film is that it kind of has this impending tragedy kind of thing, where the more you go into this film, the more you kind of realize that Connie really isn't going to get out of this at all. He's really not going to find the money that he needs to bail out his brother. And it's just really interesting how the film is constructed that way. But we'll get into it. So directing then... Like, the opening 20 minutes is some of the most intense ever I've seen. Like, the pace is super fast. You go from intense situation to intense situation during this bank robbery. When they get the bag of money and don't check it, I could guess there would be like a paint bomb thing in there, because that's kind of like policy these days, So when they get in the car, I was like, it's gonna go off soon, guys. Get rid of the bag. And of course it does go off. And I like the fact that the film sticks to these really long lenses in almost every shot. is super tight on the actors. Like in the car, when the paint smoke goes off, the shot is completely engulfed in smoke, and you can't see anything for like a good 3 or 4 seconds. So you're completely disorientated for a moment. Even with like the foot chase, with the depth of field is like super narrow to make the spaces feel quite enclosed with very like few people in focus in the scene. Even though there's people everywhere, it's kind of just still feels very intense, even though you're in these big wide open spaces in these shopping malls. So through the chase. So yeah, that opening 20 minutes or so is really intense.
Yeah. Overall, I mean, like the sense of color in this movie too was amazing, especially towards the beginning with like, how different like is cinematography once the bomb goes off and the paint bomb goes off and stuff like that. And just the way that they keep up racking it up when you get into a situation where like Benny Safdie's character is in jail, how close up it is on him, how like just intense and claustrophobic it just feels. It really brings you in a way that I thought was really entertaining, but just very anxiety inducing.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely occasions where I feel like the director is giving a lot of the actors, the background actors, a lot of license to kind of improvise and do what they want, and yet they're just using this long lens to just stay on Safdie or stay on Robert Pattinson to do their thing. And if the background actors get in the way, that's fine. That's totally fine. We're just going to stick on Robert Pattinson. So even with the scene where they're going up to the bank with these rubber masks on, I'm like, surely people are going to notice that these masks look really shit and not real, but it's surprising what you can get away with, I guess. But yeah, it's quite intense. The second half of the film, especially, I feel like has more slower moments in there, and there are more scenes where you have like a chance to breathe, I would say, but they certainly don't last long. There are on occasions where you get this feeling of inevitability that Connie is going to get caught at some point. There are more wide shots at times where they're driving down the highway with these big helicopter shots, like they're being followed by a cop helicopter. There are loads of occasions, it feels like, where cops just show up, and there are no like scenes where you see someone phoning the police. In that like last chase scene where Connie does get caught, it's all done in a big overhead shot with no intensity at all. So for me, like towards the end, there's a sense of eventuality that Connie is doomed to fail, because the pacing kind of subtly does slow down in big moments. Whereas in the first half, the tension couldn't be higher. But at the end, they still surprise you with like a holy shit moment when Ray falls to his death. I was like, oh my God. Yeah, I mean, when you see that, it's like, yeah, when he's climbing on the window, you're like, yeah, he's gonna fall soon, and he's dead.
And there he goes. I mean, it is also just a great like how they reveal the fact that he ended up taking Ray instead of his brother by accident, and just the overall story of like when you get into Ray's head and like how like different chaotic that feels compared to like Connie, who's like our main protagonist right here. The Ray story just feels just very frenetic and chaotic, where it's just like this one crazy thing that keeps him happening to this guy. I just love like the sense of just like setting in place. So they always let you know like how far the cops are, the sense of tension when like they initially want to run from the cops, and they just ask them like, hey, how are you guys doing right there? And they just let that linger for a little bit, where it's just like, oh yeah, Nick is just going to break right here. This is what's going to happen. There's no escape.
It always feels like there's a cop like around the corner in any moment in this film. And did you get the sense that like kind of the air was being let out of the balloon kind of thing with tension? Like certainly the first half of the film felt very intense and really on edge, whereas towards the end in the second half there were less tension moments, but it was done in such a way that like, yeah, Connie is going to get caught. This is just an eventuality that Connie is going to get caught. And I felt the rhythm there in the directing that that the film was trying to portray that. Did you feel that, or am I looking into it too much?
I felt that like that this movie did need a couple moments for us to breathe just a little bit, because if it was just one intense like chase sequence, I don't know how well that would have worked. But the thing is that like it even gives you subtle cues that like even though like yeah, he's taking a breather for right now, or he feels like he's safe, there's still something right around the corner. There's still someone right there. I mean, like even when he's just like switching to the news report of just like them reporting like, yeah, this guy Connie, he's out for like this bank robbery. No matter where he goes, the news report's going to come after him, and this is just going to follow him. So it's just a fake sense of relief, fake sense of security. It's like, yeah, you can catch a breath for 5 minutes, but then you got to start getting find a way to get the fuck out of here. I felt like overall they just kept it at a decent level where even the calm moments weren't that calm.
Yeah, I feel like definitely the calm moments puts you in a false sense of security, really. Like, as you say, when he puts the TV on and he sees his face on the news, you're like, he's got to do something about that.
Yeah.
So I feel like Connie is a character that is quite good at improvising, but like he's not very good at like thinking 2 or 3 steps ahead. He knows the next step, but like after that, he doesn't really know, you know.
And I even think like towards the end of the movie, there's like a sense of warmth they really bring to Ben Safdie's end, like his character in the therapy group just that just felt a really sense of warmth and comfort, and be like, okay, this is where this character should end up, and maybe things aren't that bad for specifically Nick, whereas Connie, like, you know, he got what he got.
Interesting you said that, because I have a different take about that. But we'll get into that in screenplay. Do you have a favorite scene or shot, Tommy?
I think in general, just the scene in like the haunted house where
they
beat up the whole entire like color palette, that was amazing. But then the fact that they just take the security guard's clothes, and then I took me a minute to realize they just shoved liquid acid down his throat, or liquid LSD down his throat.
Oh, did they? Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it was. So the guy woke up, beating the crap, hallucinating on LSD with all these ambulance coming around him. And I was like, that's the most fucked up thing I've seen in a movie in a while. That's not like a death scene. Because you can imagine the guy's panic and sense of like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, because Barack Kabadi, I think his name is, like, he... I was just like, what is he saying? I feel like I must have missed that. But yeah, he's just shouting gibberish when he gets woken up and taken into the ambulance. Yeah, so that's interesting. Yeah, my favorite scene is the same one as you. Yeah, like the Adventureland sequence I really liked, because I think going into it, you get the sense that they're not going to find any money there, that this guy Ray says he's stashed in there. Like when they're in this ghost train haunted house place, it's so dark in there, you can barely see anything. Like the characters themselves wouldn't be able to see anything. So that was cool in a realism aspect. But when like the security guy comes in with his flashlight looking for them, and normally in these types of scenes it would be super tense, but because the whole film is pretty much one big long suspense sequence, you get the feeling that they're probably gonna get caught. And of course Ray gets caught, but Connie saves him by knocking him out, and the security guard and Connie unties Ray, and they go and put the security guy back in the funhouse. But before that, the security guy like turns on all the lights, or at least some of them, and it appears to be this weird sex dungeon fun house. And I was just like, what the fuck is going on in this place?
The weird ass Adventureland right there.
Yeah. This is not for kids, people. So you have these like guys stuck in the real underworld while being like stuck in this weird, fantastical, fake underworld with all these like neon lights going off everywhere, a lot of reds and pinks and things. So I thought it was kind of a great contrast there. And then before you know it, he's dressed up as the security guy, and the girl gets arrested that they're with. There's a lot of stuff thrown at you, but zero time to kind of take it in. But it all becomes like a blur, much like the characters are going through. Just a great scene for me. So I feel like that's what's quite clever about this film. There's a lot of crazy stuff that's going on, but because the film moves at such a pace, like you don't have time to really process what's going on. It's only like scenes later or on rewatches that you really see things. And obviously this is a first watch for both of us.
Yeah.
So I feel like this could be quite a different experience watching it for a second and third time. Like if you want to do that, because it's quite an intense movie. But yeah, you would see, I feel like you would see more things like hit you more in a more of an emotional impact. But I certainly like that aspect, especially in that scene.
Yeah, like you said, on rewatch, I could see this just being like a situation where you'd be like, oh, like how close were the cops are in this one situation, or like a sense of like place, like those YouTube videos they make for like some movies where it's just like, here's where the cops are in relation to him at some point. I'm sure you can pick up on that a little more and more, like how far away he's away from getting away or anything like that.
So, directing score, Tommy, what are you going for?
I'm going to go 9 out of 10. I think this is a very well-crafted, directed movie, and it just knows its sense of tone in a way that's really masterful and just knows, when to give up the tension a little bit and when to bring it right back in. And this is a movie that, like, if you have anxiety, don't watch this whatsoever because you're going to hate it. For me, this is just really just amazing. And just the way they use up like the close-up angles and the sense of everything in terms of color, the Adventureland sequence like we're talking about, the opening bank robbery sequence, it was all just well-crafted. And even though this movie did not have a massive budget, it still felt just very tense and pounding and all that.
Straight 9 then?
Yep.
For me, I think I'll go pretty strong. I'm not sure I'll go a 9. Yeah, I agree. I just definitely do like the use of camera lenses here, that you're really tight on these characters half the time, and I feel like they use wide shots in a really clever way to like not just like release the tension for Connie's character, but just to give, as I said, like to give this character and the situation like an inevitability kind of thing that, there's no real plan here for Connie. Things are going wrong. He doesn't have a plan. He's going to get caught. So I kind of like that. And you don't necessarily get that through the script. I feel like you get that through kind of the release of tension. Very, very subtle, but for me, this kind of release of tension throughout the film. So I think that was quite clever. But yeah, certainly the first half is super intense. The most intense sequences you're ever really going to see. So I'll go like an 8.8 for me. Screenplay then. The first half of this film is really intense, as we've said many times. But when Connie, Robert Pattinson's character, breaks out his brother from a hospital and hides out for a bit in this family's house, for a bit, the film calms down in a few moments. Like he wisely dyes his hair. To what end? I guess it's just a kind of a clever thing to do at the time, but I don't think it really makes a lot of difference. His brother's just like sleeping happily in the next room. Then Connie and this 16-year-old girl are just watching some TV. Then all of a sudden his picture comes up on the news. And before the girl realizes who's on the TV, Connie kisses the girl and takes her to her room. So you go from this, oh shit, Connie's on TV, to, oh, he's kissing a 16-year-old girl. Then to, if that's not enough shock, his brother wakes up, and it's not his brother at all. It's some random guy called Ray. So I love how we have quite a calm scene, certainly the longest calm scene in the film, that ends up having 3 what the fuck moments in pretty quick succession. So good for me. You never really see them coming. Maybe you kind of see the scene, the little moment when you see his picture come up on the news, but that's it, I would say. There's no way you see him kissing the girl coming. There's no way you see that Benny Safdie ends up being a completely different actor.
Yeah, exactly. The actor was like literally a dead ringer. But I do like the way this screenplay just reveals information slowly at a time. Like, even the scene with Jennifer Jason Leigh, who's only in this for like a couple scenes, of how it just subtly shows you like how this woman is just a mess. I mean, like the fact that she's dating Robert Pattinson to begin with, but then the fact that she's like screaming on the phone of her mom, be like, "Mom, no, this is the reason why you need to do this." You realize that she's just a broken, like, I assume probably like, hooked on drugs or something like that. And then just the way they unveil that and just make it just like, okay, no matter what happens, and the way in terms of pace of script wise, you're not going to be able to get bail for your brother, and you're going to be stuck in this whole situation right here. Yeah. And even the fact of the Benny Safdie like reveal that's actually Ray, a lesser movie could have easily just made that very obvious from the beginning, but in this way, they just like bring where it's like a little twist, like, holy shit, did not see that coming whatsoever.
Yeah, that was great. I mean, I didn't see it coming whatsoever either. I mean, the scene that you mentioned with Jennifer Jason Leigh in like this, I don't know what you call it, but this office place where he's trying to give this guy bail money to get his brother out, and this guy behind the desk is on the phone to a judge, and then at another point he's on his personal phone trying to wake up the guy or something, and then Jennifer Jason Leigh is trying to like pay for, the bail, and it's declined, and then Pattinson is trying to calm down Jennifer Jason Leigh at the same time. So you've got all these situations going on. The guy behind the desk is saying he can't get hold of him, and it's really late. I don't know whether this is going to work. The payment's not working, so it's just like so many things that Robert Pattinson's character has to deal with in like such a short space of time. Yeah, that was super intense as well from a writing perspective, for sure.
I do like how they slowly like reveal like the relationship of Bay Safdie of his like overall family, where the whole grandma reveal that like he hurt my grandma, and we're not even sure if that actually did happen or not, or if it's just like the grandma's out to get them or something like that. But you do get the sense of like the little snippets we do get of what their life was before this whole botched robbery went wrong is really well done, I think.
Yeah, it's kind of very light on information there with that, I would say, and I don't know. For me, I don't think there was a huge bond between the two brothers. There is a sense that certainly with the bank robbery stuff that Connie is kind of trying to manipulate Nick a lot, but I kind of get it. But there's an interesting scene where Connie and this random dude Ray are waiting for this girl to get them food at this fast food place, a White Castle. I don't know if that's a real place, but it kind of looked weird.
Oh, it is. It is.
As a British person.
Yeah, Harold Kumar went to White Castle.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And Ray tells us about his like backstory about how he got hurt and got arrested, and it's a proper like flashback scene, like with good pace to it, and it keeps the same tone of the film. But I was like, why are we seeing this whole flashback about a character we've literally just met in Ray? Then it started to click that he left a bag of money at this amusement park called Adventureland. Then when the flashback finishes, we see Connie typing the direction to the Adventureland place. So initially I was frustrated, like, why are we seeing this? But at the same time, I was like, I liked how you're not like spoon-fed why this is happening. So yeah, it's an interesting use of flashback there that, initially, like, why are we seeing this? This seems kind of pointless, but I totally understood and got there before Connie was kind of typing Adventureland into his phone, the direction. So yeah, he wants to know where this money is. But so what did you make of that flashback scene for you, Tommy?
I did actually really like it a lot. I think that it just gave us a little more insight into Ray's character to show that he's just as much of like a piece of shit as Connie is, really, but in his own like stupid kind of just like fuckboy way of just like over and over again, like, this happened. It's just like this guy can't catch a fucking good break because he keeps on getting his own way. And it just sets up for later on that like, he's going to fuck over Robert Pattinson, but like not intentionally, just because this guy's a fucking like jackass and idiot. So I think that was just a little good slice of character moments. I think it was also very well directed in terms of just like how rapid pace he was making the story and everything like that, and how the reenactments were, and just showing like the one shot of the car of him rolling out and stuff like that. I think that they paced it in a way that it wasn't just like unnecessary or just too lingered on too long. It was, I think, structured in just a well-paced way overall for that one little flashback.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like it certainly was kind of directed really well, and like his friend comes back, obviously, to that apartment and kind of lies to Connie saying he will get the money, even though he's going to get like a gun, I guess, instead to take him out. So that was kind of cool that, they established his character before we see him again. So that was nice. But I feel like, I don't know, if they pushed it too far, I feel like it was just going to be a scene from like the Ant-Man flashback stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think they pitched it just right for me. I don't know whether it was entirely necessary to be that long with the flashback, especially with a character that we've only just met, but I get it, The last scene where Connie's caught and in the police car is great as the camera pushes in really tight on him. Then we cut to his brother Nick in this like learning difficulties school. And as the scene plays out, you realize he's wearing the same coat. And it's the same psychiatrist in the very first scene with Nick. So immediately I thought this has to be like a flashback before Connie like came back and took him away. Then as the credits roll, it just becomes quite tragic and sad because Connie has gone through all this and failed to get Nick out of jail. So we have no idea what's going on with Nick in the present. We don't know if he's okay. For me, this last scene shows that Nick was in the best place he could be at, and all what happens with Connie could have been avoided. And I don't think the film explores enough about how much Connie knows about learning difficulties, but you certainly get the same sense that he is manipulating Nick in that robbery scene. My sympathies are all kind of with Nick and not necessarily Connie, but I totally understand that Connie just wants to be with his brother and help his brother out. So in the end, it feels like, again, another film where society is kind of the real villain here, not necessarily Connie. So it's kind of a very complex end for me, which I didn't really see coming. I thought we were going to get like a proper resolution here. Was he going to be reunited with his brother in prison? But we don't see that. For me, that looked like a flashback to right at the start.
I think that the scene did work for me in terms of the ending. I think that we're supposed to interpret that maybe Nick wasn't in like a high security prison like in Rikers as he was in the beginning, and that Peter, the therapist, I think had his best intentions out for Nick. I mean, the earlier scenes where like they talked to, it was like the lawyer or DA or whatever, being like, I don't think that you're responsible for this as much as you're laying on. I think they all realized that Connie was manipulating his brother and didn't respect his brother ultimately. I mean, he basically used his brother as a pawn at the end of the day, even though he was trying to save him and everything like that. But I think that him in the group scene was just showing him acclimating himself to society as much as Nick could, in a way. So
yeah,
I think the overall better outcome for the character than whatever Connie was going to do is going to have them be on the run and constantly in like Florida or something like that. And who knows how that would end up.
Yeah. So did you not see it as a flashback then to the start?
No, I didn't see it as a flashback. I did see it as just like the end of just like, end of the movie. Just like, here kind of got caught. Here you go. Here's this little therapy session for you, Nick. Let's see how you end up in this place. And with the therapist, that reminded me so much of Alan Alda that I thought it was Alan Alda throughout the whole movie.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I guess so. Maybe I need to watch it again and go through all that intensity. But yeah, it's just interesting that Connie, like, he is trying to like help his brother for sure and find this bail money in any means possible. But I guess for me, like, it's interesting that like Connie doesn't really have the understanding, or certainly doesn't want to know more about Nick's like condition with his learning difficulties. Like, no, he thinks that he'll be best suited with him. Nick will be best suited with Connie in his care, whereas I kind of don't think that's the case at all. I think the best place for Nick is in this school at the end. So regardless of whether you see it as a flashback to the start or he ends up there at the end, I feel like it is kind of tragic anyway, because they are split up and Connie kind of thinks no different about his brother, like, as in the fact that his mind hasn't changed, because after those initial scenes when Nick does get caught, they never see each other again in the film. So there's no like coming of age, like learning process for the character of Connie. So it's kind of interesting. There's no like character growth really for either character.
Yeah, no redemption. Like,
yeah. So it's interesting in that aspect where they don't really go down that road. There's no like Hollywood, running each other in each other's arms at the end kind of thing. And it kind of plays into this thing as well, that this was always going to kind of be a tragic ending for them. And I think the film deliberately is telling you that subconsciously before it happens that, yeah, this is not going to end well. And I think it kind of reiterates that fact at the end with seeing Nick in this hospital, that in fact he is in the best place he can be if he does end up there. And Connie still kind of doesn't really realize that. So he's going to have to stew in a prison somewhere, I mean, it's kind of pretty clear that his family don't have any money, so to bail him out. So,
nor they want to.
yeah, I mean, with your ending, your interpretation, I would say it's still pretty tragic for Connie and Nick in some ways, because, like, yes, he is in the best place he can be, but he doesn't have his brother anymore. He's not really going to have any contact with him, I don't think. So I wouldn't presume so. So whatever way you look at it, there is some tragedy there for sure.
It's like weird melancholic where it's just like ultimately it's for the best that he's probably not going to see his brother again, Nick, that is. But it's still just like he's obviously going to be torn up about that and still confused. I mean, even the fact in the circle and the group activity, he's slowly getting used to it. But it's good that we don't see what like 5 years later is or anything like that, just in that one moment instead.
Yeah, it's quite a great scene that, even though the credits are kind of rolling, I would have done without that, to be honest, and just have pretty standard credits and just see Nick trying to process what's going on with these questions, because the teacher is kind of asking all these questions like, if you've done this, walk across the room, and like after the first like 3 or 5 questions, he doesn't do anything. He just stands there. He's still you can see it on his face from Benny Safdie that he's still processing where he is, what the hell is going on, and only after the 6th and 7th question, like, he does start to walk, Funny, interesting lines I have got from Robert Pattinson. I think I was a dog in a previous life. In fact, I know I was. That's why I love them so much. Yeah, that was a great one, and kind of feeds into this kind of disillusionment with his character that, he is kind of very uneducated, I would assume, through watching this film. And there's definitely a few occasions, like watching it, that like he feels like he knows what the best thing to do is in each situation, but as we kind of said, like, he doesn't really have a huge plan of what he's going to do. It's all very instinctual, and there's even a moment, I think, when he talks to the girl that in the car, I think he says, like, I feel like it was my purpose to meet you, and you're supposed to be like really important in my life or whatever. And it comes off really weird and a tad creepy as well. But
yeah,
a lot of these lines that he delivers, just it gives the character a lot of unpredictability, and you're not necessarily with him on this quest all the time. There's always kind of lines where he delivers like that, where you're like, what did he just say? Huh? I'm not sure I agree with that, things like that. So it's an interesting script in that sense.
Yeah, and the way that they show that, like, this character ultimately is just using everyone as a pawn, and maybe his brother a little bit to a lesser extent, but even with the girl right there, where you see her get essentially arrested right in front of him, and he doesn't do anything to help. And he's just like, all right, well, I guess she's lost. I'm moving on. So just showing the character how ruthless he is, almost like the Heat, like you have 5 seconds before you can get out, kind of thing.
Yeah, I do love Heat, which we have covered as well on this podcast. Heist films, very easy win for Heat against Army of Darkness.
Yeah,
but yeah, I agree. Yeah, well, I mean, that just kind of proves my point that, like, that thing that he was saying, that, oh, you were supposed to be in my life, you're supposed to be really important to me. And when he's talking to her about that, and as you say, like, he just doesn't help her at all, and it's just those lines just then feel very hollow. He doesn't know what he's saying sometimes. I don't think. Have you got any lines then that you like, Tommy?
So I did like Ray just like talking about like no one's better than any next man. He's saying like, hey man, have you been to jail? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
I think Ray's whole entire monologue too about the taxi driver like freaking out, being like, I'm not getting ripped up by anyone. He punks again. He fucking steps on the gas, and that was it. He takes off. I hear the word cops, I lose it. Like, I got to get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, I feel like every time someone says cops, like, every character is just like looking around, like, where are they? Where are they? Because you kind of know that there are cops around the corner somewhere. Yeah, I think my favorite line is definitely from the girl in her house, and she asks Connie, you dyed your hair? Yeah, I'm just kind of a weirdo. Pattinson says. And it's just like, yep, there's no way I can explain this. I dyed my hair because I'm a criminal and I want to change my image up.
Yeah.
I can't really say that to you, so I'm just going to say, yeah, I'm just kind of a widow. But I mean, what do you say in that in that situation?
In that situation, you're like, yeah, fuck it. What do you want from me? Like, I just felt like doing it. Whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. So, screenplay score, Tommy, what are you going for?
I'm thinking probably like a 7.5 or so. I think it was overall a tightly wound script at some points, but I don't think it was like anything outstanding in terms of the overall script. I think the directing is really what takes this movie over the top instead of the script, which is serviceable and a little bit above serviceable, but not spectacular in a way.
Right. Okay. So is there anything that's kind of missing for you, or do you have any issues with any certain scenes?
I think just in general, like maybe just a little more insight to some of the character relations, or just like insight into their relationship between the two brothers would have probably been a little bit serviceable. Yeah. So that was the main thing that brought it down a little bit.
Yeah, I think I agree. There's a lot of focus on the intensity of the situations, and there's no real time given of character development between Connie and Nick, and I would have probably liked a little bit more of that. And I feel like the film definitely goes for this very surface level of Nick having learning difficulties, and they just leave it at that. There's no like trying to delve into his character really. Yes, you have the opening scene with the psychiatrist, but I feel like that's just to establish that he's got learning difficulties. That's it. And I feel like this film would have had a lot more heart if there was just still have the intense stuff, but like have some more development between those characters before they decide to rob the bank. I would have preferred that, and maybe just more interaction between the whole family with Jennifer Jason Leigh and the grandma. I mean, this isn't a particularly long film, and I don't think you need to add too much for that to really work. And I think when Connie does get arrested at the end, I feel like that would have worked a lot better if we kind of had more of a relationship between the two brothers. And I think it is just kind of very surface level, unfortunately. So I kind of agree. So, but I do love the intensity aspect of it, and certainly that scene, that moment of calm in the house, and you have this triple whammy of shock moments. So that was great. So I might just go like a solid 8 for me. Right, acting then. I feel like for me, this is probably where the film shines the most in the acting. Would you agree with that, Tom?
Oh, 100%. And especially with Robert Pattinson himself. I mean, he gives just such a great central performance right here. I'm just a guy constantly on edge, just like, what the fuck is happening next? Like, he's just as uncertain as the movie is in general. It's just the way he's over his head constantly.
Yeah. I mean, for me, like, I haven't seen all of Robert Pattinson's films, but I feel like this is definitely right up there, if not one of his best performances that he's ever given. He looks like he's having an anxiety attack like the whole way through, frankly. And I mean, we kind of chat on a little bit with the characters' relationship between the brothers, but there's definitely something in there. He elevates the script certainly in his acting when he does have scenes with his brother Nick, played by Benny Safdie, and there's definitely a lot behind the eyes that he really does care for his brother. But again, it would have been great if we had a lot more of that. But yeah, even in the really calm moments, you feel like he just can't afford to relax at any moment. There's no moment where you feel like he's going to fall asleep or he looks tired. He's just like super jacked, like the whole time, alert. He just can't allow himself to really relax at any moment. And when it does get intense, like there's not even a huge change in his performance when things get insanely intense. Like it only goes up a few notches because he's kind of intense like the whole way through.
Yeah, you definitely see like the sense of like how he can't relax, and the scene where he's watching TV with the teenager. He's just constantly just looking out for the next moment of like, okay, where can shit go wrong from here? And you just see a man that's just thinking every single possible exit you can think of at all times.
Yeah. But I did love the opening scene here, though, with Benny Safdie and this psychiatrist. Again, it's like really tense for me because the scene makes it clear that like Safdie's character, Nick, has done something wrong. And early on, he says that he doesn't like things being written about him. Like Safdie struggles to answer these questions about what these phrases mean. I mean, I kind of struggled with some of them. I was like, what the hell does that mean? I've never heard that before.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, what?
Maybe they're just American. It's like, what happens when grease oils the wheel or something? I'm like, what?
Yeah, that's what I was like, what the fuck does that mean?
Yeah. So for pretty much the whole scene, he never looks at this psychiatrist once. He never looks at him. He clearly doesn't want to be there. And in moments, he looks kind of angry. Then this tear comes down his cheek, and you immediately feel sorry for him. But the tension never really leaves the scene until Pattinson turns up and takes him away. Just a great opening scene for me. Definitely Benny Safdie's best scene is the very first one.
I agree. I mean, it's one of those things with a character like that who has like developmental disabilities. Those types of roles can easily go off the rails and just be like, oh, this is just very cringy or offensive or just like not well portrayed. But Benny Safdie doesn't fall into those tropes because I think that he plays it almost like a little kid who doesn't understand what's happening. I think that's kind of the right way to portray him, especially when you're saying the opening scene of him just being confused and hurt by like what the therapist is saying, where it's like, I don't want you to do this anything. It seems like almost like a little kid having a tantrum in a way that doesn't come off as very cringe or like, you know, the Tropic Thunder joke of like Simple Jack or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Benny Safdie does a great job. I don't know whether like, this film was made in 2017. So, I mean, even now, I feel like if they didn't cast like someone with actual LD,
yeah,
I don't know whether they would get away with it, to be honest. But Benny Safdie does a great job in this one. So Jennifer Jason Leigh, she's not in it much, but like I think she does a great performance, as we kind of said a little bit in that office scene, and there's moments where she's kind of shouting down the phone, which kind of adds, but then quickly calms down, and it kind of adds to this huge tension in that room. Certainly from her acting, I think she just has this great quality of just looking very uncomfortable and not really fully aware of her own self, kind of thing.
Yeah, like her character gives off a sense of obliviousness.
Yeah, definitely.
I think one of my favorite performances was Ray, Buddy Duress as Ray. I think that Ray as a character was just very just energetic and kind of a shot of just like, we just need a fucking dipshit jackass in this movie. And he really portrayed that role well, of just like this little fuck boy that's going around and like talking about going to jail over and over again. But he's just a guy who keeps on getting into stupid situations because he's an idiot. And I think that is played off Pattinson really well. And the ending scene of him jumping off and falling to his death is all just because, again, he's a jackass and an idiot, not thinking things through whatsoever.
Yeah. I mean, he makes Robert Pattinson's character look fairly normal, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly.
Fairly calm.
Yeah.
Favorite performance for you? Who are you going for? Silly question.
I'd probably go with I think Ray, even though Robert Pattinson's amazing in this movie, because I think that Ray brings almost a little bit of tension relief in a movie that doesn't derail the tone of like the slight comic relief character, right. Which I think this movie kind of needed someone like that, and he portrayed a role very memorably.
Yeah, I think that there's slight comic relief a factor there with his character, but not too much that really, as you said, not too much that derails the tone. But yeah, I'll probably go Robert Pattinson. I think he does an extremely good job of just having an anxiety attack the whole way through and just like really trying to figure this shit out as best he can, within this character. Yeah, so I'll go with Robert Pattinson. Acting score for you, Tommy, what are you going for?
So I think overall this is a really well acted movie, and this is what makes it shine. And just like the performances Robert Pattinson gives of his brother Benny Safdie in this, and just by Duress and Jennifer Jason Leigh, I don't think there's a really wink link to this cast. I'm going to go like an 8.75.
8.7?
Yeah, 8.7, yeah.
Yeah, I think this is really, really great. So definitely the best aspect of the film for me. So I'll go like a 9.2. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Yeah, I think the acting is pretty exceptional from Robert Pattinson, especially, and the supporting cast are really great. So yeah, 9.2. Right, let's add up the scores then for Good Time, which certainly was not a good time necessarily watching it.
Great oxymoron of a title.
Yeah, Good Time got a very good score of 51.2. So not bad at all. But I have a feeling it's not going to stand a chance with the other film. That's it for part 1. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. Check out part 2 to see who wins. But don't stop there. Get involved and tell me what your favourite films are relating to the episode. Send us a DM or comment on Instagram and TikTok at Film vs. Film Podcast. For X at FVF_podcast. Plus, we are now on YouTube, so hit that like button and comment there. If you do, I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Remember, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Pod signing off.